cut it out, fold it, bolt it, done. Weld it. Welding's in there somewhere. Done. In the last episode, we were able to fix the rust in the battery box. I've got the front of the car up on jack stands, and I figured while I'm here, we may as well revisit something that I didn't quite do well enough in one of the previous episodes, which was mounting the E46 steering column. There is still a fair bit of movement in there. I made a bracket, and it was more of a prototype. Very rarely is the prototype the one that you use. Now that we've got a solid bit of metal on the underside here where the battery box is, I need to make another bit added to this bracket that then gets bolted under the battery box to stop the lateral movement in the steering column. Let me just get the bracket out so I can show you what I did and what I'm going to change. All right, this is the bracket. Winged thing. Now, it's 3 separate pieces with welds either side and a little bit of excess up the top. I think I'm going to do this out of one piece and then fold the sides up. And there are little angles on there to get it to where it needs to be. I've got to make a template for it to come up and then flatten off, 2 holes, and then all of the holes that I've got in here, I'm going to weld in captured nuts, so then you don't have to mess around with nuts and bolts, it's just a bolt straight through. Another thing that we're going to need to do, as well as the plate down the bottom here, is the E30 has these nylon sliding bits, maybe for accidents, I don't know, but the E46 steering column in an E46 is hard mounted. So we're going to get rid of these ones. We're going to drill a hole in the top corner and we'll do a weld on nut onto this plate that I've got on the inside here. So then we can just whack a bolt straight through. I'll do that first and then we can go on to the plate. I've modified the plate that the column bolted up to and then this bolted to the chassis. I'll show you why and well, you can see what I've modified. I'll show you why I did it. On the E30, you've got the steering column and a bracket that just has the bolt going through with the little slides. Because we're wanting to hard mount this, we're going to drill holes up closer. And I already have a friend who's kind of started working out this modification. I told them I wanted to put an E46 steering wheel in my car and they were like, hey, that's a good idea. So this just gets it a little bit more forward and a little bit up higher before the bits that I'd cut off were fouling in this radius. I don't want to modify the radius because that's going to be a lot of strength. But now I can get it up a little bit higher, drill these holes out, weld the captured nuts on, and then that is a hard mount for the E46 steering column. So I've got to work out where these holes are, drill them, send it. If I was going to do this again, I would put these holes slightly higher because I can't fit the other nut in where it needs to go. I changed my mind. I changed how I wanted to do something. This was the bracket. Ooh, focus. No, anyway, this was the bracket that I had originally. Bolt through, bolt through. They have to be the perfect length, otherwise they're going to foul on each other. I thought, not a big fan of that one. This is the bracket that I've come up with. Yeah? Bolt through, nut. Welded on the back, no clearance issues. Going to try this one. I'm pretty sure this one should work a lot better. Let's go have a look and I'll tell you 2 reasons why I wasn't quite sure if this was the right thing to do, and people in the comments can let me know. These bolts are a little bit long, but it doesn't matter anymore. When this comes to final installation, I will use nylock nuts on the thread that's holding the column in. I did have a concern that having basically spikes, they're a threaded rod, and if I got into an accident, where could they end up? There are threads sticking out from the firewall already. So I know I'm adding more, but there are some there already, so it's not as though it's just a blanket rule to not have them. I did also check to see if it was common for any of the fittings that hold a steering column on to be high tensile, and it doesn't seem like it is. So I did look into both of these things, and I did consider them both before I did this. And there is every chance that the engineer sees a picture or a video of this and goes, not overly fond of that. And if that's the case, I make it again. Took me probably half an hour, 45 minutes. Really, like, maybe a couple bucks worth of materials. So I can make it again. Once the engineer has confirmed it, I'll get them zinc coated, so like the gold passivated, and then it'll all look nice and neat and pretty, even though no one's ever going to see it outside of the people watching this video, which is slowly growing. Thank you very much. Oh, baby! Okay, that's half of it done, but I think the angle's slightly off. We'll sort the bottom plate out, and then it's just going to be strong as. Sick. Whew. I'm hot. Oh, yeah. And I've got to go to work. I'll be back. This is now hard mounted, and it is way sturdier than it was previously. I've put that weird plate in, got it into a reasonable position, and it's not doing anything. So I'm going to completely scrap that, and I'm just going to go back to... damn phone. This plate isn't really doing a lot. It's not really going to help it with the side to side, the lateral movement. I'm going to still bolt to the same spots on the steering column, and then just come up straight into this battery box, and I'll reinforce the battery box as well. So I'll sort out that, maybe make a cardboard template, cut it out, fold it, bolt it, done. Weld it. Welding's in there somewhere. Done. So this will go underneath here, and I'll be able to bolt up, should stop the movement. That ain't right. Has my gas run out? I didn't have my gas on. This bit has the bit bolt up to it, captured nuts or welded nuts. This bit is going to get welded to the chassis with threads coming down, and this will bolt up to it. I'll show you how it all works in a second. Let me weld the threads onto this, and then this into the car, and then I can bolt everything up. Then I got a steering column. Hey. This is the face that's going to go hard up against underside of the battery tray. Having this little recess will mean I'll be able to get a bunch more weld in there and hold the threaded rod just a little bit better. I can use these nuts because they've got such a good foundation or base, so they get welded on square. You can use them to hold your threaded rod square while you're welding it up. So let's tack it on. We don't want that much thread hanging out. If you leave the nut on there, cut the thread, you can use the nut to form the thread when you take it off. That can now get welded into the car. Sadly, I now have to go to my bottle shop job, so I'll be back again. All right, we have the top mounting bracket. We now have the bottom mounting bracket, which is fixed to the fixed plate of the steering column. I need to just weld that plate in right there and see how rigid this thing is. It should be pretty good. It's way more than the E30 had, and it's probably equal to what the E46 had. So this should be it. Then we go onto that hole in the firewall, and we need to replicate what's in an E46. All welded in. Now I can put this in. I do need to make sure that I can still get the steering linkage. Now that this is all finalized, it should be pretty rigid. I need to make sure that the linkage goes on at the same time, and there's going to be some fiddling around, but let's try. And that is an E46 steering wheel and column and rack mounted into an E30. Because we raised up where the steering wheel was sitting just a little bit higher, it's then made this angle a little bit better, so it's not as bad. And I can even so before, when that's full lock, this was flexing quite a long way laterally to the hole, but that is like rigid. Rigid. There isn't a single bit of movement in the frame at all. The last step in the steering is working out what we need to do with the firewall. On the E46, you have a rubber boot that slides into a hole. There's a little bit of an overhang that then seats on the back of the firewall, and then this plate bolts in from inside the footwell. So I've got to template out the inside of here. There is an arrow which points directly up, so it's about there. Mark out where some thread needs to get welded into the firewall, cut out the hole, and then basically have this diameter run on this nylon-y diameter. And then that allows for the movement in the adjustment in the steering column and seals up the firewall. We do have a change in shape kind of thing here that I need to work out how I'm going to make that work. Cardboard aided design, made it so it is all going to fit in there properly. I can now mark out where it is, top and bottom, center it, and then transfer that onto the firewall and cut it out of the firewall. I believe that is the size and position of the hole that I need to do. Take all of our pieces and templates to the table and make the plate. I don't have a complete picture of what I'm doing. I am kind of just generating the idea as I go. I think we are going to have to do some panel beading to make it so this plate can get spot welded onto the firewall, but then still conforms to the change of levels that are happening on the firewall. And then we just have our threaded rod coming out of this plate. So all we need to do is spot weld the two together and then grind out on the firewall to make it work. That is the smallest the plate could possibly be. Now I need to work out where I need to add the material to then be able to form it to the chassis. Let's just lift some rocks and hope we don't get bitten by any crabs. I've gone to U-pull it, put this bit of cardboard onto the E46 to mark out the exact shape of the hole I need to cut. I've then transferred the hole on the E30 to this, cut out it onto the plate, And now that lines up with that. Now I need to cut this piece out on the outside and then transfer that onto the plate to make sure everything's in the right spot and the studs end up in the same spot as the E46. I made some little marks that are still like that. So now we know exactly where this needs to go and where the studs need to go. We have our plate. It fits in. We have our boot. I had to get another one of these because it has this little locating bit that locates into the plate. So that sits like there. There's an arrow here that points directly up, like so. Then, like that. Okay, so that all fits together. We just need to get this plate welded onto the inside of the chassis. But now that this is all fitting together, I can now mark out my holes. Wonderful. Drill them out, weld a bit of threaded rod from the back. So then this can bolt on and we are done. We have the steering sorted. I'll send everything off to the engineer. I've gotten a tentative, that looks good, but he can sign off of it and then we've got the whole steering system worked out, which is amazing. Let's drill some holes, do some welding, prep some panels, do some more welding and be done with it. Doesn't look like it's warped too much. And which way? That way? No, the other way. Yes. This one needs to be ground down. I don't think this one does, because I think that's where the chassis kind of dips back. But I'll clean it up and then I'll show you what it looks like. All right, I'm gonna try and do this, but I'm still holding the camera, so bear with me for a second. That goes on there. And then that goes on there. And then the rubber bit comes from the other side. So that's all gonna work really well and it won't look any different from the outside, like from the engine bay. And there'll be carpet in front of this, so you won't even see it. Nice. That fits real nicely. That's the E46 steering wheel column mounted in the E30. It's not going anywhere. All of the brackets that I've put in are really holding it quite tightly. You can see the wheels move. That's like full lock and there's no movement in the base of the steering column. I didn't finish welding in the plate. I've sent everything off to my engineer. I'll wait for him to confirm it and then I can fully weld everything in and then it is officially actually good, signed off, done. I need to do a wheel alignment, but I mean, probably least of my issues currently. We'll head over to the table because I've got a bit of a giveaway that I want to show you. In the last episode of the Ute, I did a t-shirt giveaway. I've since done another video on making a hose reel out of some of the parts that I've taken off of the E30 Ute. So check that out because it had the information or the winner of the giveaway to the t-shirt. Check that video out and if you won, shoot me a message over Instagram or Facebook so we can sort out all of the shipping details. The next giveaway, M-Tech 2 385mm. This is going to be given away. Again, I'll send this anywhere on earth. All you have to do is be a Patreon. I'm going to be doing giveaways within the YouTube channel, but I'll be doing more giveaways to my Patreon group. So if you want to win this, sign up to be a Patreon. Currently in episode 23, I'm going to do this giveaway at the end of episode 25. So you've got a couple of videos to get into Patreon, and then I'll do the giveaway and one of you lucky fellas or fellarettes will get this. I want to say a quick thanks to Leonard for messaging me over Instagram and helping me with my overheating issue on the camera, and I want to thank everyone watching. If you've gotten this far, think about subscribing. I'll see you in the next one. Keep lifting rocks, keep finding crabs. Cheers.